Mr. Chairman, this would be Amendment 69. It really rolls up into this whole issue of some of what Mr. Garamendi was bringing up today. This is the whole issue of our nuclear deterrent that sits in Europe. I do believe that we need to have an in-depth discussion and debate within our own committee members to really forge the future of what that nuclear deterrent looks like with respect to Europe, what sits in Europe, and what it really costs us to do all of that, whether it's needed or not. And I think it's a very timely thing, especially when we take a look at what is happening in Ukraine and other countries. We've seen aggression into Georgia before, for example, with respect to Russia. So I think it's an important issue to talk about a strong NATO and also the arms that sit within that arena. This particular amendment that I am bringing forward, just to put a place marker so that I hope we'll have a discussion on this, but I will be withdrawing it, is to talk about what it costs for us to have that nuclear deterrent within the boundaries of NATO, and the fact that the United States bears almost 100% of that cost. It's an incredibly expensive thing to do, especially when we're looking at the B-61 life extension program. We are talking about a $10 to $12 billion life extension program over the next few years. And NATO does not contribute to those costs. This is fully borne by the United States. So I think it's incredibly important for us to realize that and to go back to the drawing board and think about what we need there, what other things we have in our arsenal, if you will, and to have a good plan and be able to have a good discussion with our NATO allies. Mr. Turner has worked very hard as the head of the interparliamentary group from our Congress to work with NATO. I applaud those efforts. He's asked me to work on those issues also. They're very in-depth. They're very important. I am all for the NATO alliance. I think we need to have a strong alliance as ever before, if more, just in seeing some of the issues that we see on the front pages and on the newspaper. But we really need to talk about what that alliance looks like, what arsenal we have, and what cost, at what cost and where do we place that. And so I will be pulling back my amendment. Yes, Mr. Turner, I will yield some time.
Ms. Sanchez, thank you so much for your commitment and your recognition of the importance of NATO. Certainly, I think the whole issue of NATO's participation, the NATO allies, European allies, contributing overall to our defense is important. You know, obviously, the B-61 is our weapon, and so that certainly casts in the light of being something that is along the lines of our responsibility as we're undertaking it. But the one issue that I wanted to make about the B-61, because there have been a couple of amendments that have been offered and withdrawn, including Mr. Garamandi's, we should not all lose focus of the fact that General Breedlove was just here, and the Supreme Allied Commander for our European forces stated that the B-61 was absolutely necessary, that forward basing of nuclear weapons was absolutely necessary, and that we did not have in the in our strategic footprint and the tactical footprint the capability that weapon forward-based provides. So I know many people are questioning, is it needed? And it is absolutely needed. But I do appreciate your dedication to—
If I might reclaim my time, Mr. Turner, as much as I enjoy General Breedlove and think that he is very capable, there are many minds on this subject. And again, that is one of the reasons why I join with Mr. Garamendi in saying we really need to have a discussion about this and really bring in the experts and figure out what this looks like for the future so that we can, in fact, approach our NATO allies and figure out what we all are going to do together to keep this alliance strong. So with that, I pull back the amendment, and I thank both the chairman of the Air and Tactical and Mr. McKeon. Thank you.
Gentlelady withdraws her amendment. Are there any other amendments to the committee's report?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Sanchez.
I have an amendment at the desk.
Will the clerk please pass out the amendment? Without objection, reading of the amendment will be dispensed with. The chair now recognizes for the purpose of offering and explaining her amendment.
Mr. Chairman, this would be Amendment 232. First of all, I would like to thank our chairman of our subcommittee of strategic forces, Mr. Rogers, for working with me and allowing several of my amendments en bloc, and I appreciate that. This is an amendment that I think is also worthy of some debate, and so I will be introducing it, not pulling it back. Would really like a vote on this because I think it's a very important issue. This is about the nuclear weapons that we are dismantling, the ones that are sitting there that need to be dismantled. In this mark, we have cut 47% of the monies that we had over the last year to work on dismantling some of the weapons, nuclear weapons that we have that we will not be using. So what I would like to do is to restore some of that money by taking some of that money out of the Office of the Administrator and increasing the weapons dismantlement and disposition O&M by $20 million. I had a discussion with several of my colleagues, and they said, well, we just need to be building, we're more worried about building newer weapons or increasing the strength of the weapons we have or making sure that those weapons work when we need them. And I guess my answer to that is, listen, we need to worry about the weapons that we're also supposed to be dismantling because we're not doing a good job of that. And I refer back to a report, a nuclear weapons report by our GAO that was done, just finished in April of this year, where it says, and I want to quote, the uncertainties surrounding when weapons in managed retirement, retired weapons that have been approved by the that have not been approved but have been approved for dismantling may be released, and there are challenges for NNSA in scheduling future dismantlement workload and makes it unlikely that the NNSA will achieve the goal of dismantling these weapons retired prior to fiscal year 2009 and by the end of year 2022. So these are weapons that we're supposed to be dismantling. We're supposed to have it done by 2022. It's not about New START or any of those weapons. This is something that we agreed to and that we've been trying to dismantle, and we've been systematically over the years taking money out of this account. And this amendment would simply restore some of that monies to ensure that we dismantle these weapons that are just sitting there and are, supposed to be dismantled, and they're dangerous the longer we just let them sit there and do nothing with them. And so I would ask my colleagues to move monies out of the Office of the Administrator in order for us to continue to try to meet those goals that we have set to dismantle these weapons. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.